Right now, somewhere in the world, a criminal is reading a text message that was meant for you. Not because they hacked your phone, not because they broke into your bank, they didn't need to, because the system your bank uses to protect you, that 6-digit code they send you every time you log in, every time you move money, every time you make a transaction, that system was broken before you were even born. And the terrifying part? The banks know, the telecom companies know, the governments know. And nobody is fixing it. This is what they are not telling you. Something is sitting between you and your money. You cannot see it. You cannot feel it. It does not set off any alarm on your phone. It does not trigger a notification from your bank. It does not show up in your call logs or your text history. It is invisible, it is patient, and right now it is actively rating G every single security message your bank sends to your phone. And when the moment is right, when your balance is high enough, when you are asleep, when you are distracted, it will move. And by the time you realize what happened, your money will already be gone. This is not a theory. This is not a hypothetical scenario designed to frighten you into buying some cybersecurity product. This is documented, confirmed, and actively happening to real people across every continent on this planet right now in 2025. The FBI documented over 1,075 cases in a single year, with losses approaching $50 million. The United Kingdom saw cases surge by over 1,000% in a single 12-month period. In Australia, IDCare reported a 240% spike in 2024 alone, with 90% of those attacks happening without the victim doing anything wrong. Read that again. 90% of the victims did nothing wrong. They did not click a suspicious link. They did not give their password to anyone. They simply trusted the system their bank told them was secure. But here is where it gets worse. The system your bank told you was secure was never actually secure. And the vulnerability being used against you right now is not some cutting-edge, zero-day exploit discovered by a genius hacker in a basement. It is a flaw that has been sitting inside the global telecommunications infrastructure, since 1975, 50 years ago. A protocol called SS7, signaling system number 7, was designed in an era when mobile phones did not exist, when the internet was not public, and when the only people who could access the telecommunications network were the handful of trusted national carriers around the world. It was built on a single foundational assumption, that everyone on the network could be trusted. That assumption was reasonable in 1975. In 2025, it is catastrophically, dangerously, irreversibly wrong. Think about what that means. The backbone of global mobile communication, the invisible highway that carries every call, every text, every one-time password your bank sends you, was engineered with zero security, zero encryption, and zero authentication. It does not verify who is sending a message. It does not confirm that a request is legitimate. It simply routes information from point A to point B, assuming that everyone involved is honest. And that blind, ancient trust is now a weapon being used against hundreds of millions of ordinary people every single day. Here is how it actually works, and you need to understand this because most people have no idea how deep this rabbit hole goes. When you log into your bank and they send you a verification code by text message, that message does not travel through some secure private channel. It travels through the SS7 network, the same broken, unencrypted, unverified global signaling system that has been exploited for documented financial attacks since at least 2014. A sophisticated attacker who gains access to the SS7 network, and access is not as difficult as you would imagine, can send a single command, a protocol message called an update location request, that effectively tells the entire global mobile network that your phone number is now located somewhere else, on their device. And from that moment forward, every single call and text message meant for you is silently rerouted to them, not copied, rerouted. You receive nothing. They receive everything, including your bank's verification code. And this is where everything changes, because this is not a theoretical vulnerability discovered in a university lab. In 2024, a sophisticated organized crime group operating across Europe used exactly this technique to drain the bank accounts of thousands of customers in a single coordinated operation. Millions of euros transferred and laundered within hours. The attack required no malware, no phishing email, no stolen password. The attackers never touched the victims' phones. They sat in a different country, sent a few protocol-level commands through a compromised telecommunications node, and watched the money flow. The banks could not stop it in time. The victims could not have prevented it. And most of the people who lost their money had no idea what had happened to them until they tried to use their card and it was declined. But the SS7 exploit is only one layer of this problem. And if you think that layer is disturbing, wait until you understand what is happening at the device level, because the threat does not just come from the outside of the network. It can come from inside your phone. Right now in 2025, there is an entire ecosystem of Android banking malware specifically engineered to do one thing with extraordinary precision: intercept the text messages your bank sends you before you even see them. These are not crude, obvious viruses that drain your battery and crash your apps. These are sophisticated, invisible parasites that live inside your device silently, patiently, and completely undetected, designed by professional criminal organizations with the technical sophistication of a mid-sized software company. Security researchers at A&I Run identified one such parasite in April 2025. They named it Salvador Stealer. Upon installation, and it installs disguised as a legitimate banking support application, it immediately requests a set of Android permissions that most users grant without reading. Receive, Taju, SMS, read SMS, send SMS. These three permissions are the keys to the kingdom. The moment they are granted, a background service activates invisibly. It registers what developers call a broadcast receiver, a permanent listener that monitors every single incoming message on your phone in real time. When a text arrives, any text, the malware intercepts it before your messaging app ever sees it, extracts the content, identifies the sender, records the timestamp, and transmits everything through an encrypted channel to a remote server controlled by attackers. Your bank sends you a code. You never see it. The attacker already has it and is using it to approve a transfer you never authorized. What makes Salvador Stealer particularly calculated in its design is its dual exfiltration strategy. It does not rely on a single channel to transmit stolen data because a single channel can be blocked. It uses two simultaneous methods. It forwards your SMS messages directly via the phone network to attacker-controlled numbers, and it simultaneously transmits the same data through HTTP requests to a remote command and control server. If one path is cut off, the other continues. The data gets through, your security code gets through, and your account gets emptied. Salvador Stealer is not alone. In August 2025, cybersecurity firm Sci-Firma published its analysis of another Android parasite they called Lazarus Stealer. No relation to the North Korean hacking group, but equally dangerous in its own targeted domain. Lazarus Stealer was designed specifically to attack Russian banking applications, hiding itself completely from the device's app list and recent applications view. Entirely invisible to the user, it requested default SMS application privileges, which in Android means it becomes the gatekeeper of all text messages on the device, giving it complete, uncontested control over every bank code, every verification message, every security alert your phone receives. It monitored active applications in real time, waiting for you to open your banking app, and the moment you did, it activated its full suite of data exfiltration tools. Credentials captured, OTP intercepted, session data stolen, all while you watched your balance on screen and believed everything was fine. And this is where the scale of the problem becomes almost incomprehensible. Because Lazarus Stealer and Salvador Stealer are not the work of lone hackers. They are products. They are sold. According to research published in November 2025 by the Hacker News citing the Scalar Threat Labs, Android malware transactions increased by 67% year over year. 67% in a single year. 239 malicious applications were flagged on the Google Play Store. Not third-party download sites, not dark web repositories, but the official Google curated application store. And those applications had been downloaded collectively 42 million times between June 2024 and May 2025. 42 million downloads of malicious software. And those are only the ones that were caught. Think about what that means for a moment. 42 million downloads. If even 1% of those resulted in active banking credential theft, that is 420,000 compromised bank accounts from a single threat report, covering a single 11-month window on a single operating system. And Android currently runs on approximately 70% of the world's smartphones. The exposure is not a niche technical problem. It is a mass casualty event happening in slow motion across the global financial system, and most of the victims will never know they were targeted until the damage is already done. But even that is not the deepest level of this threat, because there is a third attack vector, one that requires no malware on your device, no access to the SS7 network, no technical sophistication whatsoever. It requires only a convincing story and a phone call. It is called a SIM swap attack, and it is arguably the most human, the most personal, and the most devastating of all the methods being used to intercept your bank's text messages. The way it works is almost insultingly simple. An attacker collects personal information about you. Your full name, your date of birth, your address, the last 4 digits of your social security number or national ID, the name of your mobile carrier. Most of this information is freely available through data breaches. According to informed sources tracking the dark web intelligence ecosystem, complete identity packages containing everything an attacker needs to impersonate you to your mobile carrier sell for as little as $10 on underground forums, $10 to become you. Android users running version 12 or later have access to one of the most powerful privacy tools most of them have never opened, the privacy dashboard. This feature provides a chronological visual record of every instance in which any application on the device accessed the camera, microphone, or location data over the preceding 7 days. It shows which app triggered the access, exactly when it occurred, and for how long it lasted. Opening this dashboard and reviewing its contents should be a regular habit, not a one-time curiosity. If the dashboard shows camera access occurring at unusual hours, 2 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning, when the device should be idle and no camera function should be running, that is information requiring immediate action. If it shows camera access from an application that has no camera-related function you are aware of, that is equally concerning. The privacy dashboard converts the invisible into visible, the hidden into documented. And that visibility is exactly what unauthorized surveillance depends on you never having. The role of software updates in camera security deserves direct and unambiguous treatment, because the research and official government guidance are both clear on this point. In 2025, security researchers identified and documented a zero-day vulnerability cataloged under the identifier CVE 2025-21042 that specifically enabled unauthorized camera access on affected devices. A zero-day vulnerability is one that exists in shipping software without the knowledge of the developers, meaning there is no defense and no patch available until a researcher discovers it and reports it. The United States Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency issued explicit guidance in December 2025, instructing all smartphone users to ensure their applications and operating systems are updated to the latest available versions as a primary measure for protecting against known vulnerabilities. Every security update released by phone manufacturers and app developers contains patches for vulnerabilities, many of which relate directly to unauthorized access to sensitive hardware, including cameras. Every day a device goes unpatched is another day those known vulnerabilities remain exploitable by anyone with the knowledge and intent to use them. The practical steps available to address all of this are accessible to anyone right now without any specialized technical knowledge. On Android devices, navigating to Settings, then Privacy, then Permission Manager, and selecting Camera will display a complete list of every application that has been granted camera access, organized by the type of access granted. Applications showing as allowed all the time are the highest priority for review. Unless an application has an obvious, clear, and essential reason to access your camera at any time regardless of whether it is open, that access level should be changed to Ask Every Time. This setting means that any time an application attempts to access the camera, you receive a prompt asking you to authorize or deny that specific access in that specific moment. It converts silent, invisible background access into a transparent, visible process that you consciously control. On iPhone, the equivalent process involves navigating to Settings, then Privacy and Security, then Camera, where toggles control which applications retain camera access. Every app on that list warrants individual consideration against the question of whether it has a genuine operational need for camera access. Managing the battery settings for camera-related applications provides an additional layer of protection against background activity. Restricting an app's background battery access through its individual battery settings in Android prevents it from running active processes, while it is not in the foreground of the device, directly limiting the window of opportunity during which background camera access could occur. This setting does not affect normal foreground use of the application. It simply closes the background activation pathway. Separately, the network access permission held by the default camera application itself is worth examining. A camera app that cannot independently connect to the internet cannot independently transmit anything it captures. Disabling the network access through the Modify System Settings option in the camera app's permission settings removes one of the core enabling conditions for covert image or footage transmission. Sourcing applications exclusively from official distribution channels, Apple's App Store and Google's Play Store, versus third-party app stores provides meaningful protection because of the security review processes these official platforms maintain. Applications distributed through unofficial channels, including websites offering premium apps for free or modified versions of popular apps with added features, undergo no meaningful security screening. Research consistently documents that malicious applications carrying embedded surveillance code, camera access exploits, and spyware payloads are disproportionately distributed through these unofficial channels. The appeal of a free version of a paid app is real, but the cost of that free download, measured in privacy and security, can be extraordinarily high and extraordinarily difficult to recover from once the damage is done. The broader context in which all of this exists is one of structural tension between the business models of the companies whose software runs on your phone and the privacy interests of the people using that software. The companies building the most widely used social media applications have business models that depend fundamentally on collecting behavioral data, building increasingly detailed profiles of their users, and monetizing that information through targeted advertising and other mechanisms. camera access, location data, microphone access, and the behavioral patterns generated by how users interact with content are all inputs into those profiles. The regulatory framework attempting to constrain the most aggressive forms of this collection, the GDPR in Europe, the CCPA in California, and various other state and national frameworks emerging globally, has produced real fines and some real behavioral changes, but the underlying commercial incentives have not changed. Companies that ranked as the most privacy-invasive platforms in independent research continue to operate, continue to grow, and continue to collect data at extraordinary scale. The $167 million verdict against NSO Group was historic, but NSO Group is a company with revenues estimated in the hundreds of millions of dollars annually, serving clients that are national governments with substantial financial resources. The verdict was a landmark, but it is not a deterrent that eliminates the threat. The fines levied against Meta for GDPR violations have totaled billions of dollars across multiple proceedings, and Meta's annual revenue runs into the hundreds of billions. The fines are a cost of doing business, not an existential threat to the business model. This is not an argument for despair. It is context for understanding why individual action, taking control of your own permissions, your own privacy settings, your own device configuration, matters and will continue to matter regardless of whatever regulatory progress occurs at the institutional level. Your phone is with you for an average of 5 to 6 hours of active use every single day, and it is physically present near you for many hours more while you sleep, while you have private conversations, and while you exist in the spaces of your life that you would never voluntarily put on camera. The permission system that governs what can access the camera attached to this ever-present device was designed by companies whose interests in your data do not perfectly align with your interest in privacy. The vulnerabilities in that system have been documented by researchers, demonstrated in live tests, proven in federal courts, and confirmed by the intelligence community. But the tools to address those vulnerabilities, the permission manager, the privacy dashboard, the battery restriction settings, the network access controls, are built into the device you already own, available to you right now, waiting to be used. The surveillance capability exists in your pocket, so does the means to constrain it. The only variable is whether you will choose to act on what you now know, or whether you will set this down, open a social media app, and hand the camera back to the people who have been quietly waiting for you to do exactly that. Facebook's specific record of regulatory violations is a significant data point on its own. The platform has accumulated repeated fines for breaching the European Union's General Data Protection Regulation, one of the most comprehensive data protection legal frameworks in existence, as well as facing penalties in the United States and multiple other jurisdictions. Instagram and WhatsApp have contributed to Meta's poor privacy, standing through data policies that permit the collection of deeply sensitive personal information, including data related to health conditions and sexual orientation derived from behavioral patterns, going well beyond what any reasonable user would expect a social media platform to be harvesting. The picture this regulatory record paints is of a company that has consistently tested the boundaries of what it can collect, faced consequences when it crossed legal lines, paid the resulting fines, and continued operating with essentially the same data collection ambitions. TikTok occupies a uniquely complex position in this landscape, both because of its extraordinary scale and because of the structural characteristics of the organization behind it. What most users see as a single entertainment application is, according to research from Internet Safety Labs published in 2025, actually the visible tip of an enormous data infrastructure. TikTok and its connected entities operate 66 separate mobile applications, accessible through app stores globally, with more than 16 of those available specifically to users in the United States. The data ecosystem extends dramatically further through TikTok's published software development kits, which research has documented are integrated into approximately 48,000 other mobile applications, meaning that tens of thousands of apps you might use without any connection to TikTok in your mind are nonetheless feeding behavioral data into TikTok's data collection infrastructure. The algorithmic system processing all of this data is extraordinarily sophisticated. Industry analysis has documented that TikTok's recommendation engine processes more than 100 individual data points from each user interaction to continuously refine its behavioral model of each user. Every micro-hesitation in your scrolling, every fraction of a second you spend on a particular frame, every time you watch a video twice, all of it is signal data being analyzed and stored. The permission creep problem that makes social media platforms particularly dangerous in the camera access context was illustrated with devastating clarity by a historical case that established the pattern still in use today. Flashlight applications, simple utilities that existed solely to activate a phone's built-in LED flash, had exactly one function that required exactly zero camera access